Yeah, President Smithy.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for that. Just a couple things that I kind of want to talk about. I want to start at the kind of our generating side of the business, kind of work our way in. But as you see up on the chart here, Nebraska City unit number 1 in the month of November had a capacity factor of 66.75% and really remained in service for the entire month. We did have some derate due to some operational issues that should be resolved certainly by the end of December here or over the next couple of weeks. So we'll see that kind of rebound in 2019. Nebraska City was in full service for the month of November, with the exception of a 35-hour unit outage in late of the month for some repairs. We had North Omaha Unit 4. Well, let me back up. Let me go units 1, 2, and 3. They remain in reserve shutdown during the month, as many of the folks know, and certainly that may be on the webcast. The board decided to shut those 3 units down from coal use and transfer them to natural gas use. Outside of testing for natural gas, I think in 18 we really haven't used them, but they're there for the capacity value that we need for the market. Unit 4 was available for full capacity during the month of November, except for about 33 hours because of some operational issues and an exciter issue at that unit. And Unit 5 was available for full capacity during November, with the exception of 2 units two outages that last about 155 hours. And there's a variety of different repairs that we made when those units came down. So that's really our fossil units. I'll talk a little bit about the peaking units. Our peaking units during this time of the year as we prepare for the summer in 2019, and even right now, because some of our peaking units have been used just in the last couple of weeks, that have been called for as a demand on the regional system, primarily for either transmission resiliency issues or voltage support issues for the region. They're currently in a variety of different inspections, testing. An example would be relay testing that we're doing. We're doing some transformer work that supports those units to make sure that they're ready as we need them, even more so during the summer for peak reasons. The board received a pretty deep briefing on our Fort Calhoun decommissioning activity, but as Mary presented, we did have a NRC public meeting to discuss a partial site release of 2 sections of property from the Fort Calhoun license that the NRC governs. 3 members of the public attended the meeting, along with representatives from the state of Nebraska and Iowa, and public comments were submitted or will be submitted or can be submitted until December 26, 2018, and you can do that on the NRC website. This really gives us some flexibility not to have that property covered under the NRC rules and regulations. Also gives us an opportunity to determine another use of that property as we move forward. In the month of November, renewables for the month contributed to about 32.3% of OPPD's retail energy sales, and the wind capacity factor for the month was 42.4%. For the year through November 2018, renewable energy contributed to 31.3% of total energy sales. The capacity factor for all the renewables, which includes our landfill gas, includes our hydro allocation that we get from the Western Area Power Agency, and obviously our wind resources, our wind resources that we have as well, about 1,000 megawatts or close to that. And the wind capacity factor was at 42.4%. So we continue to see good energy generation from our wind resources. I'm going to ask the board and maybe the chair to give me just a little bit of liberty here. And this may not be for anybody in this audience, just to be very honest with you, but it may be for the employees at OPPD. And I'm going to share it in this way, and I'm going to give you an example of kind of our commitment and what we do within this organization. And many of the board members talked about the commitment of the employees, but last month was an interesting month. People wondered why I didn't do the president's report, and I'll be honest with you, I leaned over to Chairman Kavanaugh and I said, I don't think I should do the chairman's report. I'm actually concerned about what I would say because I'm going to sound like a defensive father here, because the words that came out of a number of people's mouths, whether it was written for them or written by themselves or however it was developed, was around whether OPPD had the appropriate moral compass or had the appropriate ethic imperatives to do the right thing for the future. And I was actually really disappointed in those comments. I think they were spoken with some naivety and some ignorance about who we are and who our employees are and what our employees do. And I'm going to give you an example of what that may look like. Because obviously the folks that were speaking have no idea what we do. They do not know of the ethics imperative training that this leadership team has gone through and we've cascaded through the organization. They don't know how we hold ourselves accountable for the work that we do and the decisions that we make day in and day out every single day. And so when people make those light of heart comments and credit themselves and however they want to credit themselves and how good they've done, whether it's in an editorial in a paper or whether it's in a comment here, sorry, I'm going to be a defensive father for the employees who put their ass on the line every single day and every hour of the day. And they are the most integrity-focused, ethics-focused, morality-focused people that I know. And I will take any company and compare them with folks at OPPD. Nobody holds anything close to what we do every single day. And I'm not going to let people get away with that. I'm just going to let you know that very clearly. And so if people want to question the moral compass, then you question mine. If you want to question the ethical imperatives, then you question mine. But by God, don't you question the people in our organization and our senior management team that give far more hours to this community and this company and to our employees than anybody that I've seen. And I'm not going to allow that kind of behavior to go unresponsed in any single way. And I apologize for that. But now I'm going to give you the example. I'm going to give you the example that wasn't shared last week, because what was shared last month was, we are the largest emitter in Douglas County. There's no doubt about it, because our boiler is 25 times bigger than any other manufacturer in the city of Omaha and Douglas County. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that and why plants were built in 1940, 1950, and 1960. And we are, and this board and previous boards have made decisions about how we are moving away from being a biggest emitter in Douglas County. We've made decisions on units 1, 2, and 3. We have a plan and a date on when other decisions will be made on units 4 and 5. And so we will not be the biggest emitter in this region, right? The biggest emitter in this region are people that hail up as 100% renewable. I think that's indigenous. I think that's not right, right? So we are working through those issues. My team over the last 6 months have been focusing on what this future looks like, right? From our perspective. And we are looking at the trends. And as I shared with a couple board members yesterday, is that I'm going to be meeting with them individually over the course of the next month, because we have 5 really critical strategic imperatives and initiatives about what the future of generation and transmission, two-way communication, digital end-to-end strategy. What about our customer experience? What about our customer interface? How are we going to gather customer input about what this new energy marketplace is going to do? No different than the other strategic initiatives that we, over the last couple of years, presented to the board. We'll be doing that and getting board input and perspective. But for people to think that we don't think out, I would say then you haven't asked, because we will present something to this board for consideration of our strategic initiatives, probably within that first quarter timeframe, about what we believe we should look at and what are the implications of that future for not only this company, not only for this community, for our employees, for our customer owners. And we're going to be very comprehensive about that. I will assure you that this team has the capability to do that, and we will do that, and we'll begin to share that in the next week or so with the board. But let me give you an example in this next slide and you may not be able to see it here, but you can certainly see it here. I shared this for those that went to the Sierra Club meeting. I presented this because I think this speaks to our commitment to ethical imperatives and our moral compass. On the top part of this chart is a red line. It's the maximum regulatory requirements under the Mercury Air Toxic Standard that went into effect several years ago. Then there's a green line below that. Green line below that is about half that maximum regulatory requirement of the Mercury Air Toxic Standard rule. And you see our performance underneath that. We are currently a low emitter status, and not every coal plant is a low emitter status in the United States of America, and maybe not even within this region. But we have made a decision to be incredibly strong environmental stewards on the assets that we have and the assets that we use. Because we are a low emitter status in Nebraska City 2, we're moving to be a low emitter status in Nebraska City 1. That's the assets that we have, and that's how we've environmentally focused our work around that. So what was not necessarily shared and discussed is what we're doing around those kinds of things. And you can see the nitrous oxide, the sulfur dioxide reductions that we've seen just in the last year and the focus that we're doing to make sure that we are incredibly good stewards. I think it's appropriate for me to share the work and the focus of this leadership team and our employees day in and day out and how they're looking at what we do in this organization, what we do in the community, and what we do in the environment. The next page is even more interesting. It's around our mercury emissions and what we've done on units, North Omaha units 4 and 5, and these are very consistent with what goes on in Nebraska City 1 and Nebraska City 2 as well. With the work that we're doing. Look at the changes. It's about a 90 to 95% reduction in units 4 and 5 on our mercury emissions at North Omaha. Well below the regulatory standards, well below the low emitter status. This is our commitment to environmental stewardship that shows up in the work that we do that usually doesn't get talked about because we're relatively humble in what we do and how we do that. I think it's important to share that. Now let me talk a little bit about kind of our commitment in the next slide around our core values. October of this year reminded a lot of people at OPPD about October 26th of 1997. John Green's here, and so he certainly remembers that. He was the chair at the time. But it was a great example of a storm that came early in the year, heavy storm, heavy rain, snow, ice, leaves still on the trees. And by 11:45 on that Sunday, we had about 5,000 customers out. At 12:15, we had 13,000 customers out. At 1:45, we had 43,000 customers out. And at the peak, we had around 52,000 customers that were out. The picture up here is a crew that was working to restore power near 132nd and Grover. During that weekend, we had over 100 OPPD crews working in the field. We had folks throughout the organization that were engaged in what was going on. We had an individual that was retiring and was vacationing out who came in to assist Troy Vai, who was the new VP of Energy Delivery. That's the kind of commitment that people had. But we were able to work through that. And within just a day or so, we were able to restore 99% of the people, except for some of the most greatest damage that we saw with trees and wind and other kinds of things. We had a lot of customers visiting our storm and outage center. I think this has been the greatest ever. 25,000 folks that visited the storm and outage center, had nearly 800 view posts on the restoration process and on the top 10 storm stories that went on. We engaged almost 2,300 on Facebook with about 819 comments. There were nearly 650 comments on Twitter, 250 replies. We're trying to meet the customers where they are in multiple channels, whether that's on calls in the field, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's whatever device that they are on. So we've seen significant increase in how we communicate with customers. And I tell you, after that storm, I received incredible feedback from folks about the information that they had on our restoration process for that storm. Want to go to the next slide on our commitment to the community and not only our passion to serve. Now, part of this is people don't really understand what goes on in this energy industry. Some of it's naivety, some of it just don't understand what we do. And so for the last 5 years, we've been working with students in a variety of different grades to understand what goes on in the energy business, not just for us, but a variety of other companies as well. So on October 15th and 17th, we had over 175 students from Mars Magnet School, from Papillion La Vista, from Omaha South, from North High, from Northwest, from Blackburn High School. We had partners like Lincoln Electric Service, Metropolitan Utilities District, Black Hills Energy, Northeast Community College, Metro Community College, University of Nebraska, that was really there to help support this focus on utility education and utility experiences so that we can make sure that we continue to recruit the best and the brightest, certainly in this region. And we're talking about expanding that to other parts of our service territory as well. The next item is around honoring our community. We have a variety of employee resource groups that do so many things in the community. This is an example of the second annual OPPD Women Network that provided a Halloween event that raised money for Make-A-Wish. They served over 117 plates with the help of a variety of our employee resource groups. We had a couple of individuals. I'd like to recognize Michelle Deering and Carmen Schicker of our OPPD Women's Network that chaired that. But just an ongoing commitment to give back. This was on a weekend. This wasn't 8 to 5. This was on weekends. They provide a lot of services in the evenings for a variety of community, families, and needs. Next is another honor of our community, but also our passion to serve. People who have had the passion to serve. Our OPPD's Veterans Employee Resource Group participated in the Veterans Parade. Again, if most of you may remember, that was a very, very cold and damp Saturday. And matter of fact, someone in a meeting earlier today, there was a high school SEAL group that decided not to go because it was too cold. But yeah, we had, this is only a sample of our employees, but we had 35 or 40 employees that were there that were representing our Veterans Network. And it's important to also recognize their past service to this country. But just another great opportunity in how we show up in the community and do the things that we do. The other thing is in this next little slide here is our new legacy group, a group of about 30 folks that we're working with to build their capabilities for the future. This is our legacy I3 students, and we thought it'd be a great opportunity to help them learn what it means to be part of the OPPD family and what does honor the community mean. And so on a Saturday, November 17th, we took these young kids with several of our employees to the Heart Ministry that distributed food to about 350 families and helped them pack up their holiday specials, which includes bags of green beans and pies and yams and everything else you need for a great Thanksgiving dinner. And last but not least, we're still in this process here, but our Veterans Network have picked up our Toys for Tots, and they just do an amazing job. I don't know how many boxes full we're going to have, but it'll be 45 boxes full of toys. And our Papillion Center has a partnership with Walgreens, and they go in and essentially they donate their own money. They go and they buy these gifts for these young kids that need toys. And it's just an example. And so when people say that, and question the moral compass or character or ethics imperatives, again, I would take that on any single day of the year, and I'd be willing to do that. And last but not least, it's just a great opportunity for us to remember those at OPPD that gave their life in the line of service. And this is Lawrence Wood. He was a lineman. He died on June 20th. 1964 from injuries sustained from a fall after coming into contact with an 800-volt line atop a cable terminal pole near 87th and Capitol Street in Omaha. The work was part of restoration efforts from a storm that at the time was billed as the worst storm in OPPD's history, sustaining winds of over 95 miles an hour. He was only 34 years old, had 11 years with the district at the time of his death. And after his first year, Mr. Wood served a 4-year enlistment in the United States Navy before returning to OPPD as a groundman and helper. He was survived by his wife, Jean, his son, Bill, his mother, and 2 sisters. And I would just like to thank the board for giving me a little bit of liberty today, so, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.